this is our meeting for the fall, and we have a really exciting lineup for you guys. Unfortunately, our co-leader, Ginny, will not be joining us today. She had a death in the family, so please keep her in your thoughts and prayers this week, and we will definitely miss her. So she won't be talking, but we do have Professor Dinko Bacic from Loyola University in Chicago. Dinko is a professor of, what is it, information
systems.
Information systems. Yep. And I've known Dinko for several years because we both worked at the University of Southern Indiana together, and we both started the Southwest Indiana Tableau user group together. So we've worked together on quite a few projects. So it's good to be able to work with him again, and to have him join our group. And after Dinko is done with his presentation, he's going to talk about visualization and his research that he's done in visualization and user experience. So I'm sure everybody will appreciate that, and especially the people in higher education will love what he has to share with us. After he's done, then I will talk for a little bit about improving user engagement in Tableau, and particularly Tableau Server. So you might not use Tableau Server, but I think some of the things I have to say will you can apply in other areas as well. So with all that being said, I will pass things over to Dinko. I'll stop my screen share, Dinko, so you can start yours. And if you have any questions, you can enter them in the chat, and I will keep track of them. And we'll give Dinko a few minutes at the end of his presentation to respond to the questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephanie. Great to be here. I really appreciate your invitation. Stephanie, if I run over time or something, give me a signal so that I keep us on track. As any other professor, I like to hear myself talk. Apparently, that's what my students think. So my name is Dinko Bacic. I am a university professor here at Loyola University Chicago and the Quinlan School of Business, Information Systems. I came here about 2.5 years ago. Like Stephanie said, I was at the University of Southern Indiana for about 5 years. That's where we met. And before that, I actually came into academia rather late. I worked in the corporate world for about 12 years or so. So as I kind of go through this research and things that in business information visualization, I can definitely tell you I'll feel your pain from your day-to-day jobs and working with data. I lived through it. I worked in many departments: finance, HR, supply chain management, analytics, and things like that. So that is my background. And another thing that I wanted to kind of mention, even though as a professor I'm supposed to be very technology agnostic, right? And kind of like work with all the tools, and I really am, but I do have affinity toward Tableau, given this is a Tableau user group. Stephanie, you can't say a word here, but does anybody have any idea what this picture is and where is it from potentially? I know this is not fair. But guys, what this is a first Tableau user group conference in 2008. It was about 160, 170 of us there. From the moment I started kind of working and recognizing there is this tool like Tableau, I really was gravitating toward it. Completely changed my career, everything that I thought about what I want to focus on and things like that. That actually motivated me to go into and finish my doctorate and work on data visualization, right? And I think you see there in the back is, I think, Stephen Few. I don't know if you read any of his books. He is right there. And then we live now in this world, right? This is one of the recent Tableau user conferences, right? So tremendous growth and things like that. So that's like, I always have a little bit of special place for Tableau just because how it shaped my career. So today what I wanted to talk to you about is about business information visualization and understanding what it is and how it's maybe separate than other visualization domains, and what are some of the elements of it, and what is research doing. Then I want to go a little bit more narrow and talk about user experience and business information visualization from my research perspective, where I use biometric equipment, and I want to show you some of that stuff as well. And then if you have time, I wanted to highlight a few research topics that I think it's worthwhile watching as you're kind of working on your visualizations, and start thinking about it. Should I be integrating some of that stuff into it? Okay, so kind of like a 3 goals, and see how far I'm able to go through. Before we kind of talk about information visualization, I think we need to recognize that, and you might be aware that there are multiple sub kind of domains within information visualization. People talk about information visualization, they talk about data visualization, they talk about visual analytics, they talk about infographics, using in journalism. All of those are great kind of subunits, but they all have different goals. And I kind of, one of the researchers that's leading the way in really shaping or working on with business information visualization, and recognizing that we are not just about using visual representation to amplify cognition, to help users understand it better, but we have that extra step. At the end of the day, we need to make decisions with these visualizations, right? And we need to understand our business. So I will talk today about business information visualization and that research, because I think it's salient and kind of important to what you guys do on day-to-day basis. Before I go into what is business information visualization in the research and what are its elements, what also makes it different is that visualization of BizViz is part of business intelligence. So most of you have some kind of business intelligence systems that works with data, manipulates it, and then you have a visual representation layer, right? And some of you are using Tableau. And what you're trying to do is make sure that the right people have the right information, they can make decisions, right? So visual layer of this BI systems that everybody is using has this, role in helping us make decisions and make them efficiently and more effectively. But what's important to help users make these decisions, that even the design of the system, visual system, needs to manifest intelligence, so that it actually supports and amplifies human intelligence dimensions. Because what we're trying to do in business intelligence is make intelligent decisions, right? So in the research, I was starting to think, is there a framework that takes a look at visualization that helps us be more effective, smarter, more intelligent as we are looking at data, right? And are there some elements that are critical to it? And I was kind of looking around, I didn't know. And then I realized there is this concept called visual IQ that measures our visual intelligence in a way, right? And values certain mental capabilities. I'm not going here into measuring what is, intelligent, what is not, but simply saying, what do we value in a person, right? And in that model, we value fluid intelligence, we value domain-specific knowledge, we value somebody's quantitative reasoning, we value somebody's visual spatial processing, and how they're dealing with the memory, right? So those are the mental capabilities that we value in a person when it comes to visual IQ. So what was interesting to me is that these 5 actually very well aligned what should be a good business visualization system, like something like using Tableau or some kind of a BI platform, right? So when you look at the research in terms of helping somebody be better at fluid intelligence, which means spotting problems on spotting patterns on the spot in a very quick way. That's fluid intelligence. The systems that are really great and enabling fluid intelligence give you those exploration and interaction capabilities. So that's one of the reasons probably why you guys really prefer Tableau over maybe doing visualizations in Excel, right? Because in Tableau, you are able to very quickly spot patterns, change your hypothesis, do another visualization in a sub-second and move forward with your analysis, right? So that's that exploration component to it. And that often needs interaction capabilities. So you have to be able to interact and ask questions from a system, from data, and quickly get back your results from it, right? So you can have links, you can do filtering, you can do the drill downs and all those other things. So the system that has the exploration and interaction capabilities actually helps you with the fluid intelligence. So you should be taking a look at the system that you're using, and does it actually give you these capabilities or not? That's one thing. The next one is a great business visualization system should be given to people that actually have domain knowledge. And you know, you can give somebody ability to create a chart, but if they do not understand the domain, you're gonna see through it very quickly, like very quickly, right? So there is research out there that also suggests that there is a difference between novices and experts and how they use the system and what they look for, right? So a great business information visualization system should be given to people that do have a domain knowledge and they have business acumen and they understand what is the relevant data. They understand that in the HR, maybe you use percentiles. They understand how to calculate something, let's say retention in a higher education, right? You know, what is the timely data? What is the data consistent with everything that's published? So good systems should enable people that have a domain knowledge and have access to relevant data to make really their visualizations work well. Next thing is quantitative reasoning. So how do these visualization systems include the quantitative reasoning capabilities? You see the recent trends that you, if you want to be a good user of Tableau, you need to start understanding statistics, some of the basic concepts in statistics, right? So you know percentiles, how they work, you know medians, averages, and all those basic things. Obviously, you need to bring with you. At the same time, tools like Tableau are bringing some analytics capabilities, so you can integrate it with your predictive modeling, right? So if you're able to work with analytics and work with statistical concepts, a tool like a Tableau or any other visualization tool will increase your quantitative reasoning again, which very well aligned with that framework that I was mentioning before. What you're also seeing movement now into business visualization, certain visualizations that are not traditionally displayed in business, right? So you can see the distributions. We were looking at it more from a statistics perspective. We are looking at average user now being comfortable using clustering and displaying clusters. All right, we are using certain visual displays that you know, those tree maps and things that we maybe didn't use in business every day. It's becoming now a norm, and it's almost like an equalizer, right? Before, you only had statisticians, modelers use certain visualizations, and our business analysts kind of stay with the, you know, your bar charts and tables. Because now we can quickly use these other formats and we are becoming familiar with them, it's almost like an equalizer between data scientists and, you know, the rest of us in a way, right? So that's the quantitative reasoning. The next one that we value is visual spatial processing. So our ability to retain, retrieve, and transform visual images. And there's tons of research being done right now in this visual spatial processing. So we are talking about representation of data. So there's a lot of research that talks, when do you use a table, when you use a graph? What are the things that you should consider, right? That's representation. Once you decide which one you're going to select, then we talk about presentation. There's research that talks about which colors do I use? How do I label axes? headers, all those choices that you have when you present something, it improves your visual spatial processing. Also, in this space, we are seeing a lot of work from psychology being implemented in visualization space. So in terms of how we perceive the world around us, how we process that information in our brain, and what is the impact on the user in terms of the cognitive effort. So we use, you might be familiar with concepts like Gestalt laws, how we perceive the world around us, proximity, similarity, figure ground, as well as how our brain works to process that information. And then we also have things like pre-attentive attributes. You might be familiar with that in terms of, is there a way that we can display data so that people can focus very quickly on certain things without really being forced to go under very high cognitive effort. It's subconscious processing. So there's a lot of work there where you can pick from it so that you can help user visually and spatially process information quicker and more accurately. One of the theories that's out there is cognitive fit. I wanted to share that with you just to kind of think about when I choose which display to use, table graph, different types of graphs. There needs to be a match between the task that you're solving and the external representation that you're selecting, right? So if your task is very geographical, right, and emphasize geographic information, relationships, then a map might be a good match to display it versus a table. But at the same time, you have to think about the end user. How are they thinking about that ultimate solution, how it should look like? Would it look like be displayed as a table, or as a bullet graph, or as a map? Once those three things kind of meet and there's a fit, people have aha moments, very quickly solve it with very low effort, and there is a performance happening there. So just always put yourself in the shoes of the user and think about what are they expecting to see given this task. And the last component is the memory, right? We value people that are able to store a lot of information and then recall. So what do we see in the space of visualization dealing with the memory? I think we are pulling a lot of studies that talk about how many items can we display so people remember them. So when you create your legend, you don't want to have too many items so people don't go back and forth. We also deploy storytelling and data narratives, right? So that people through that story remember better what you told them, what you presented to them. So when they come back to a meeting 7 days later, they know where we left off. So when you take a look at the things that we value, fluid intelligence, domain-specific knowledge, quant reasoning, visual spatial processing, and the memory, then you see that a great system really thinks about all of these aspects in a visualization. And those are exploration, interaction capabilities. They're given to people that have business acumen and they know what is the relevant data. The system has analytics capabilities and is used by people that are comfortable with statistics. You understand what is the best display medium, how human brain perceives and how processes the information. And we always want to focus on cognitive effort in terms of minimizing the effort of the user. And we often do that through our knowledge of memory, human memory, as well as how we tell a story. So a great business information visualization system is a match between making sure you have a match between a task and a representation. You understand what are human and users' competencies and what are the tool capabilities. So, I view those as the ingredients to a great system that allows you to be good at visualizing and telling stories with data. And that's probably the reason why maybe you struggle when you use another system that's not strong in some of these elements, yet you perform well in a system like Tableau, because it's built with those things in mind, as far as I'm concerned, right? So this is like business information visualization, and these are different areas where people are doing research. that we should be informed by as we are creating our visualizations and displays. Next, I wanted to introduce to you this a domain of research that's using biometrics and the biometric sensors to understand what the users are experiencing as they're looking at some kind of a stimuli. And that's part of my research within information visualization, right? So what I do is, there are all these topics that I just listed, you know, and I can do research in any one of them, you know, table, how to design table, how to do the bullet graph, how do you tell a story, right? And you can do that by asking people survey question. You can observe them and see what they do, what they click. But what I like to do is actually see what their cognitive and affective states are. And usually I'm looking for their subconscious signal that otherwise you would miss. I mean, the best research obviously includes all three: asking the questions, why did you do what you did? Observing what they did, and then also pick up all this hidden information that users are emitting. So I use eye trackers to understand their visual attention, where they're looking. When they're looking at business information visualization, I look at the brain activity, facial expression in terms of their emotions, and I pick up their galvanic skin response to get their arousal. So let me just share a few things that you can do with this technology. I can pick up eye fixations. So I know where people are fixating for a brief milliseconds, but that's very purposeful, right? There is something in the visualization that interests me and I'm spending time there, and then I'm moving somewhere else, right? Their duration, how much time I spend on it, time till the first fixation, how many times I revisit between a legend and a dashboard component or something like that. I can look at the pupil size. Are you coming closer or away from a screen? We can do areas of interest and heat maps in terms of analysis. As you're looking at your dashboard, I am taking a look at your emotional response based on your facial expression and the muscles on your face. I'm seeing, you know, are you angry? Are you surprised? Are you sad, disgusted? You can get positive and negative emotions calculated automatically. I also then pick up that arousal, right? On, let's say, on a finger, where I pick up, you know, are you engaged? Is there stress? Is there some kind of a excitement level? And then with EEG, I can also measure cognitive load. Are you trying to avoid the situation? Are you drowsy? Are you distracted? Are you in the state of flow when you're looking at certain visualizations? So here is some of the capabilities that I work with, and you know, I'm actively kind of pursuing a few publications with this. So for example, I gave somebody a tabular representation. I gave them a task, and then I'm tracking where they're actually looking as they are trying to solve the task. And then at the bottom here, I'm picking up the galvanic skin response, and I'm picking up here their brain activity, okay? So here is an example where actually table is a good match with the task. And then I give them the same, and this is the heat map, right, of where they were looking. And then I give them same task, different display, and this display is actually not fit, meaning they did not expect the graphical presentation. It's not the best way to answer the question. And when you do that and see where they're looking, notice these little peaks. This is where they're getting stressed out. There are way too many of them, right? And that they were not present when I displayed this way, right? There was only one peak and they were kind of steady, right? So this kind of talks to the importance of a fit and the impact of the user based on your choice of visual representation. And then this is, you know, how that looks. So then I also work with those Gestalt laws in terms of how we perceive the world, and those are important in data visualization. So guys, if I show you a circle, where do you think people will look? Do you have any ideas? Anybody? Don't be shy. If you just give somebody a circle, where do you guys think they will look?
In the circle?
Okay, that's a good guess. Any other?
Top edge.
Okay, yeah, very good. So I wasn't sure, right? So I played it, and look what happens. They're looking there, right? And actually, they're looking at the top corner, right? I was surprised in top part. And then what we did, we gave them a circle. They perceive it as a circle, but it's broken. It has two holes. And this is a Gestalt principle closure, and we use that in information visualization as well. Any guesses where the people would look when it's like this?
The breaks?
Breaks. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened, right? Even though they all said they see a circle, right? And this is just a 6-second experiment without solving any task. So when you change the gap, it changes where people are looking, right? So when you create your visualizations and you create a little gap in the axis or things like that, there is a chance that people will actually start focusing on that. And is that what you want, right? This is an example of using Gestalt laws in visualization. I also tested continuation, proximity, right? So dots that are closer to each other, people will, group together. That's what you use in data visualization as well. See these dots that are horizontal, they're closer to each other. It forces people to look horizontally. When the dots are closer to each other vertically, it forces people to look at vertically, okay? So when you use these laws in different domains, you can use it for advertising. You create gaps and people are starting to look at gaps, and you see it in the logo design. But what interests me in data visualization is when you create table, right? How do you force people to look at horizontally or vertically, right? So based on our preliminary study, we can start confirming if you bring items closer to each other horizontally, people will actually scan your table horizontally. If you make them closer to each other vertically, let's say table is like this, you will force your users to look down. So you can start thinking about what is my goal when I design a table and how to guide the audience. Also thinking of doing study where you ask people, can you group items together, right? On your visualization. In psychology, we do those experiments and we use color, for example, and ask people, well, how many groups do you see here, right? Well, we see 4 based on color. We can do the based on shape and ask them, how many groups do you see now and what's quicker? Well, we can use that in information visualization and start doing experiments by doing maybe some kind of a scatter plot and see when you have items by color or by shape, what's more effective for a user, right? So we can use eye tracking to do those things. And I actually have a study currently on the way. I did another study that compared, table versus graph for simple tasks as well as more complex tasks. And we found that when you ask them how hard it was for you to actually get the right solution, there is a difference based on their answer versus when you track their eye tracking behavior. So we'll obviously have to dig a little bit deeper and to understand why are people not telling us what they're experiencing, or at least what they're telling us is a little bit different from what eye tracking information is telling us. I'm working with another student that's going to go and talk about pie charts, right? There's always a debate in our field. Are they effective? And what is the right way of using pie charts? So she's going to take a look at visual attention and cognitive effort between pie charts and alternative way of looking at things like bar charts or waffle charts or tree maps. We were looking at what is the cognitive effort based on the property of a pie chart, arc, area, or an angle, as well as certain features of a pie chart design. What if you do a 3D or 2D? What if you have labeling? You don't have labeling, right? So those are all different experiments we can do. This type of technology is now being used by Tableau as well. So they did a little study, and this one is not. Oh, here we go. And they revealed when you have a big numbers, obviously it's not a surprise that people gravitate toward big numbers if you display them. If you have, oops, sorry. There we go. If you have multiple displays next to each other, there is a little bit of a fatigue. So if you have, let's say, bar charts that display sales, profit, and then cost, as they're next to each other, people start looking less and less at the items. There's a little bit of a fatigue. You know, when you have icons like human, obviously people are attracted to it, and eye tracking reveals that people start paying attention to it, which is not surprising. People also like to look at kind of bold, big objects, and their fixations move between those big objects on your dashboard. So just be cognizant of that. And lastly, the way you design your dashboard, the form of it also influences how the users are looking at it. So if you have a grid design, or if you have a triangle design or something like that, that's going to drive the user behavior as well. So just kind of be aware of it. So that's you know, different type of things that we are finding using biometric equipment. So now the topics to watch. I'm almost done. I think in business world, we sometimes oversimplify things, and we find our average income or average number of customers or something like that. And we really don't tackle the concept of uncertainty, right? That there is a distribution in our number. We only look at the summary statistics. And there is a lot of exciting research, especially by Dr. Jessica Holman, that looks at how do you display uncertainty in your visualizations so that people are aware that they're looking just at summaries and averages, right? And I think we can benefit from it greatly. Also, there's a lot of research that talks about accessibility, right? With color blindness and all different types of issues that people have when you design your dashboards and visualizations. I think we should be incorporating more and more research that's coming through that avenue. Data narratives are big. I would start paying attention at that. There is a lot of great research talking about how to create stories with data. There are different strategies of doing that, and we should start incorporating that more and more. And then lastly, there is a lot of now discussions about Tufte principles like data ink and things like that, and chart junk. What I'm seeing a lot in the information visualization field, a lot of people are kind of like, you know, the pendulum is swinging the other way. You're seeing more and more people accepting pie charts and different types of display that used to be labeled as chart junk. So we just kind of need to be cognizant that our field is different than maybe other types of visualizations, and kind of understand what are the best principles for designing it, maybe testing some of those principles, seeing if they're still applicable or not. And I think that covers it. So Stephanie, hopefully I did it on time.
You are perfectly fine.
Perfect.
Questions. You can either put your questions in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and ask a question directly. Very, very interesting presentation, Dinko, I've got to say. Some of your results were kind of surprising. I know it was mentioned in the chat that it's interesting that there's the gap between the biometric measure of ease of task and the self-reported experience. That's just,
yes,
that does not make sense logically, you know?
Actually, that's why I'm excited about measuring it through biometric, right? Because if they're perfectly aligned, the value wouldn't be as there, right? And what we are finding on simple tasks, people are not being able to differentiate is a table or bar chart better. They work through it and they figured it out, and they don't say it was a big difference in effort. But their eye tracking behavior shows me too many fixations and durations when it's a mismatch, right? When I gave them a task that the table should work way better because it's a precise number and comparison, right? But for complex tasks, this is interesting. They're starting to verbalize the benefit of the right approach, but the biometric data is not showing much of it. So,
Emily, did you have a follow-up?
I just wanted to follow up. That was my comment, and I find it very interesting. And I'll be interested to see where this lands. There's a lot of good data in the UX field about correlations between, I don't know what kind of metric you use to measure ease of, self-reported ease of completion, but, if you use like an SEQ, there's a lot of good data that correlates between like how fast somebody completed the task and how successfully they completed the task. And so to see that that actually doesn't match with, if it's true that that doesn't match with the biometric measures, to figure out where that mismatch is, I think will be very important work, either that there's a problem with the biometric measures, or for some reason this pretty big set of knowledge that the SEQ is correlated with successfully completing the task. Super interesting. Thanks.
And Emily, the other thing that I just didn't, because it's so complicated, but if I go into EEG space, right, there is actually a measure called cognitive workload, like which neurons are firing literally, that are saying your brain is working harder. It's going to be hard to push on that data back, because it's been validated in so many other fields, right? And then you ask a user and they tell you something a little bit differently. I'm not saying that either one is a wrong answer. They probably are completing that picture, right? But I think we are being overly simplistic if we are only relying on the user telling us. Sometimes they rationalize things, and by the time they say what they say, it went through this filtering, right? And it doesn't necessarily always reflect of what they were going through as they were doing it. And
yeah, like super interesting, like, but still, like for us as UX people, like if they're able to successfully complete the task, if that gives them the feeling that it was easier. I mean, I'm just making stuff up. I don't.
No. Yeah.
Then it's like that. But really, really interesting stuff. Thanks.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Thank you for those questions. Yeah. And I'll be interested, guys, if, after this conversation, if you have some interesting questions, right? Because I'm very much a business information visualization. I'm not into infographics and all this other stuff, right? I'm very focused on this and decision making and how it's more effective and efficient. So if you have some like interesting questions that you always thought, like, would you know and compare these two types of stimuli, or, I always was wondering, when I create a chart, I put a label here versus there, what is the impact to the user and things like that. Like those are little things. Yeah, let me know, because I keep a list of those questions, and then I can include them in my experiments and kind of think about it. And being a professor, sometimes I get removed a little bit from a daily decision-making task that you guys are part of, right?
I'm jealous of your lab.
Yeah, it's a lot of, let's just say that it takes a while to get everybody to agree that the lab is needed.
Anybody else have questions?
Emma, who are you on the mute, I think?
Still can't hear you.
He's in the car. Hopefully he's safe.
You can always, there you go.
We can't hear you.
Host may need to unmute his phone.
We're still not hearing you. Dinko, what's your email address? Because I'll put it in the chat, and then if you just want to contact you directly.
It's my first initial last name. Let me just see if I can share my screen again. There we go. You see it?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not one of those influencers on Twitter and everything else. I mean, I follow, you can follow me if you want, because I like and retweet stuff that I like, but I don't really post much. The best way is email or LinkedIn.
Dinko, I just want to say I was really excited that you mentioned about pie charts, because when I started doing visualizations, everybody told me, no, you never use pie charts, never use pie charts. They're bad. Pie chart's bad. Yeah. And I went along with that for a very long time. And then I started to think a little bit more about it. And there are some times when pie charts do work. There are specific situations, and there can be drawbacks, but there are drawbacks with every sort of visualization. So I'll be interested in how you mentioned the pendulum swing, how it's going to swing in the other direction and eventually end up.
Yeah, this is interesting, right? So it's back to that cognitive fit. I know it was very like academic, when I was talking about it, but that is the idea. If your user has that as a way of providing a solution, the task requires the pie chart, and the pie chart is presented. Granted, that is a fit, and that's probably optimal, right? And I'm actually, we don't have much data, to be honest. Like a lot is being said, right, about different principles that are being displayed and used. And I really am interested in, like, we use Gestalt laws all the time. I didn't have time to talk about how they each work and everything else, right? But we just published the first study in Leonardo where we use those original Wertheimers from 1920 psychology, those dot plots, right, dots. We are the first ones that did that with the eye tracking to actually show that visual attention is aligned with how Gestalt laws work and how we perceive the world, right? So I was amazed even that with the pie chart, there is some there. There is a little bit of resurgence of popularity, but it's almost like I'm getting a sense, and I know this is getting recorded, so it's a little bit controversial, but I'm getting a sense that there is some personal issues happening with, the Tufte camp versus non-Tufte camp. And it's unfortunate, right? Because that's going to muddy the water. So there is, like, right now, there's this feeling, anything that Tufte said, well, I don't know that he's right. He doesn't have a data. Therefore, I think we should include chart junk. It's okay. We should go back to pie chart. Like, you know what I mean? And in infographics and all the other domains, I think that's perfectly fine. Do what you want. But if you are in a business information visualization where you create reports every day, every week, you're coming back to a meeting, right? We have a different lens that maybe aligns a little bit better with Tuftean world than in other disciplines. But having said that, I want to test all this stuff, right? So let's do it with the eye tracking and other stuff.
Awesome. Michiel, you want to try again?
Michiel, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so sorry for the confusion.
No worries.
I have a quick question, Dinko. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Is there any tool that you use to measure the cognitive load on the user's end, or some kind of tools to measure the metrics? Or is it just by verbally looking at the users and brainstorming?
Yeah, so what I use is, first of all, if you ask a survey, there are a few survey questionnaires, like, they ask you, I work very hard solving this task, it took me a long time. So there's like a questionnaire, so that there are a few measures there. What I use on biometric side, though, is fixation duration. How long are you fixated on that one point? Because you're paying attention. Attention is indicator of an effort. You're willing to expand it, right? Mm-hmm. And there is also pupil size. So as somebody's pupil size increases, that's again indicator of attention and the effort. And there is also, using EEG, where you get a certain part of the brain that gets engaged. it measures cognitive load, which is very similar to cognitive effort. So those are kind of metrics that I'm playing with and compare. You can then combine that with GSR if you feel frustration or excitement when you're doing that, and you can start interpolating, right? Or if somebody is looking at a badly designed chart, are their facial expressions started to display frustration? That's harder to capture because, let's be honest, business visualization doesn't really elicit emotions the way watching a video would, right? So the use is very limited there.
So it's basically either you use like a surveys, or you kind of visually see person's eyes and kind of make your judgments, right? There isn't like some kind of a ER tool or something, ECG kind of a tool, right? A medical device that can.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. Like EEG, right? There is a metric when you use EEG that actually calculates to you cognitive workload. It's actually, and that's what I love about it, because I'm not a neuroscientist, right? I mean, I would never be able to understand exactly how the brain waves are working and everything else. But the new progress in people that understand how to use the brain waves to calculate a metric called cognitive workload, it gives you a number, right? And it tells you. Right now, it's a high cognitive load, right, on the brain. So I'm using all that, what these guys are working, neuroscience and psychology, and I'm applying it to visualizations, right?
Okay. So do you have like any external clients or consulting projects where you have deployed this tools and approaches?
Consulting, you mean?
Yeah. Have you worked with any clients?
I did not explore it in the past. I think now, I mean, there are a few people approaching me from consulting firms to use it, not just on visualizations, but on web design and other things, because you can apply this to anything, right? Essentially, right?
Right.
Right. And I think this is becoming more and more popular. It's a high maturity level. Not everybody's ready. Every organization is ready for it yet. We are still dealing with like bad data and just like classic issues. Right. This is like really like a high-end maturity issue, right? But this is where you need an extra 10%, extra 20% on usability side, right? This is where that you're the gravy at the end, right? I did not explore it, but I think it's very easily. This research is very practical, like very practical, right? So you can easily apply it to it.
Absolutely. I would like to share one experience, like a very simple thing. Like we all know Zoom tool is so popular in today's world. One of our CIOs at ADP was presenting to more than like 5,000 associates, employees, right? The simple improvement in Zoom, when you use the Zoom, there is on your desktop or on a laptop, right? There is a couple of menu options. The issue was, or the cognitive load, or the problem that caused to our CIO was inability to find that many options. The reason was the color of the background is blue, and we know Zoom uses some kind of blue-related hex code, and the icons, the edit icons, or whatever the menu options, the icon color was light blue as well. So the icon colors were blending with the background, and hence making it hard to visually find those menu options. So he was like, UX is everything.
Yeah, so and those things you see all the time, and they apply to visualization as well, not just this, right? So that's a really Gestalt principle of figure ground, where people use background color, where you can't figure out what's foreground, what's a background, right? Because of that, and it changes the perception, and then it's much easier, much harder for somebody to use it. Oh, I use this in some like a web design where I track people couldn't find where to buy tickets. They were just getting frustrated, and just going there, and a little redesign of the website gives you bang for the buck. Yeah.
Yeah. So Zoom should hire Dinko.
I agree.
For the UX improvement. No, thank you so much. I'm good from my side.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Okay, are there any other questions for Dinko? If not, I want to thank you, Dinko, for presenting to us. It sounds like everybody really enjoyed the presentation, and Yes, there was a question whether or not this recording will be made available, and it will. You'll have to go to the Tableau YouTube site, and it will be there. I'll try to remember to send out an email to all the participants with a link to the video, so everybody can get a chance. They would like to view it again.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna have to hop off after this, Stephanie. So I really appreciate the invitation. And I know I threw a lot there on the slides that, you know, I could have talked for 2 hours about this, every like little framework component that I showed you. But if anybody is interested in further discussion, just reach out to me. It was a real pleasure.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to transition to my presentation. I'm going to go ahead and go back to sharing my screen. So what I want to talk about today is how to improve user engagement in Tableau. And like I said in the beginning, I'm talking about not so much within a dashboard itself, but if you use Tableau Server, how to get people more engaged in your dashboards as they're presented on Tableau Server. Because there are a lot of features within Tableau Server that are really put there to try to improve the user experience. So just to give you a little bit of background of myself, I work for Samaritan's Purse within Operation Christmas Child. And if you don't know, Samaritan's Purse is a large humanitarian organization, have a huge global impact, especially with Operation Christmas Child. We deliver gift boxes around the world for children. And so we do a lot of measuring of our impact. And it's not just OCC, but it's also other departments within Samaritan's Purse. When I started working with Operation Christmas Child, one of the first things that I had to learn was who are the people that I'm serving, my audience, or my stakeholders, whatever terminology you want to use. And my stakeholders within Samaritan's Purse was much different from my stakeholders in the University of Southern Indiana, where I worked previously. At Samaritan's Purse in Operation Christmas Child, most of the people that I was developing visualizations for were helping professionals. So they made decisions really based on a lot of feeling and a lot of instinct. And as a result of that, there also came a little bit of a mistrust of data. And some of them thought that this push towards using data to make better decisions was going to totally replace their feelings and instincts. And so that was a bit of a challenge to try to overcome. And then another challenge that we have in our organization is that we've got lots of data, mostly in Excel spreadsheets, but it's all over the place. And so we have to blend a lot of data in Tableau Desktop. And with the blending comes a lot of calculations, and we have a lot of tables because a lot of our users want to see the raw data. Essentially, they like the aggregations using bar graphs and line charts and everything else, but they do want to see tables sometimes. And those tend to all put stress on the performance of dashboards. And so I had to also try to figure out a way to improve dashboard performance because that was also interfering with user engagement on our server. So my goals were to improve data understanding. Now, our users, I think I might have said this before, aren't real data savvy. I wouldn't call them data literate, but I wouldn't also call them data illiterate. But I did want to improve their understanding about what data can do and its power, its risks, and its benefits. I wanted to improve dashboard performance for them because I wanted to give them a much more efficient view of data that was especially time sensitive. I wanted to improve their trust, not only just trust in the data, but trust in the whole process of using data to make better decisions. I wanted to improve their decision making. I wanted to assure them that using data can coincide with using feelings and instincts in making better decisions. And overall, I wanted to increase my dashboard usage because I really wanted to see, are people actually engaging in these dashboards? Are they using them? Are they referring to them on a regular basis? To me, that was like one metric that I could use to measure this. So I went about this in probably similar ways to everybody else in developing visualizations and developing systems or developing applications. I first got to know my audience. Most of my audience are field ministry staff. So they're working around the globe, interacting with volunteers, interacting with children and parents and church leaders. So I wanted to know what it was like for them to use these visualizations. I wanted to know their processes, how they went through a season. I wanted to know what they liked and disliked about certain dashboards. And I wanted to know what they wanted and what they needed. All those were very important for me. And of course, I wanted feedback from them. And I wanted feedback in all stages. I tend to have, an iterative process. Almost always my first design is going to be on paper. And I'm going to share that with certain individuals, people that I think have a real interest in providing feedback for developing the best product possible. And when I share it on paper, it tends to be, I think it's less threatening to some people. They like seeing it on paper first. It's a little more comforting than actually seeing it on the screen first. And then I wanted to encourage drop-ins. I've worked in programming, web development before, web design, application development. In all of those jobs that I worked, I always tried to stress that although it might seem like I'm asking you to do more things, in the long run, my job is to make your job easier. So I try to stress, if you ever have a problem, come to me, drop in, send me an email, give me a call, text me, message me, anything. I will drop what I'm doing to help you. That was always my big thing in any of my jobs. And I think that helps build the trust when they know that you're going to help them. But honestly, all these things that I've done didn't really make a huge difference until I started doing something that I eventually called the Tableau tip of the month. And we have a monthly call with all our field staff all around the world. And everybody's giving updates on what they're doing. Well, I decided to go ahead and give an update one month on a certain dashboard that I had just rolled out. And I tagged along at the end, just like a little tip, like, and just so you know, this is how you can make this work better for you. And I got so much feedback on that one little tip. They were just so excited I didn't know we could do that with Tableau, that I decided to go ahead and make it just a regular occurrence. Every month in that call, I always do a tip of the month. So what I'm going to spend the most time in my presentation is to kind of go over some of these tips that I've shared with them. So if you use Tableau Server, you could do the same thing. If you use like online, you can use the same thing. A lot of these won't carry over to public. So if you use Tableau public, you probably won't be able to use them, but they're still really good things, and they're things that you should always think about when you are developing in Tableau. So let me go ahead. I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to get into Tableau server. And does everybody see my Tableau server screen? Give me a thumbs up or anything in the chat box. Yeah, okay. Let me stop and I'll share again. Okay, how's that? Thank you, Emily, appreciate that. Okay, so this is my, actually it's Operation Christmas Child International. This is our Explore page. And I'm not going to show you any of our dashboards. I'm just going to show you dashboards that I've created that I've thrown up in my private folder here, just to protect our data. But the first step that I did in one of my first presentations was I covered the basics of navigation and definitions to try to give them an overall appreciation and understanding of how things work. So for the navigation, like I pointed out different things like the difference between home, like here, oops, oh no, I have to log in again. Okay, let me see here. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, well, this is going to be a short presentation, I'm afraid. Not sure why this is happening, but I can't show you. Still connected. Okay, well.
Hey, Stephanie?
Yeah.
You could probably go to the dev server. We had to restart the production server, so it's still not yet back up, I don't think.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have the same things in dev as I do in prod. So, okay. Thank you for letting me know, though. I appreciate that. Okay, well, maybe I'll do this at another time, but basically, I went through the different sections and tasks that you could do in Tableau server. Like I said, I went over the navigation. I went over subscriptions, data views, collections, which is a new feature in Tableau server, and also downloads. So I went over all of that on a monthly basis, and what was interesting, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch over back to my PowerPoint.
And Stephanie, just to clarify, this was information for like end users of the dashboards, not people who are developing dashboards,
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Correct. Yep. Can you guys see my PowerPoint? Hold on, let me try again. Now? Okay, thank you. Okay. So let's see. So And then there's going to be future things that I developed to talk to users about. Other things that I did, I always use descriptions on my projects and my workbooks to try to help users just at a brief glance what's inside the workbooks. I also worked on better organizing the projects, which are also called folders. So they were just organized in a much more efficient manner. Always try to remove outdated or unused or stale dashboards. If you use Server, there's a really nice section on performance and user status that you can use. And one of the options is stale dashboards. So you can look at and see what dashboards haven't been used frequently in the last few months. You can also use that to troubleshoot certain dashboards. Like if you expect to see a dashboard used more and it wasn't, then you can kind of troubleshoot and do some research as to why that is. And speaking of the metrics, you can use site status to track metrics. Like I was able to see that I've had significantly more views in my dashboards now than before I started doing the Tableau tip of the month. Also, one of the things that I need to continue to do is to improve dashboard performance, because like I said, it's very important, especially we have a logistics department that is constantly viewing the data on a Tableau dashboard that tracks where the gift boxes are. And that data is refreshed like every 15 minutes. That's how frequently they use that dashboard. And sometimes that dashboard can be very slow. So I need to improve the performance so they're not spending as much time waiting for a dashboard to load. And so a lot of the things that I've done is to move to Tableau Prep to use a lot of blending of my data sources. So the heavy lifting is done behind the scenes and not in desktop. And then publishing those flows from Tableau Prep as outputs onto the server as extracts, and then scheduling them to refresh on a regular basis. So I'm sorry that I wasn't able to show you anything. I apologize for that, but maybe we'll do it again another time. So that is it. Does anybody have any questions for me? I didn't stop to look.
I'm curious as to, I think it's really interesting and great. I'm curious as to what your thoughts are as to why the tooltips was the final thing that kind of pushed people over. Do you think it was drawing attention to the fact that we've got these dashboards that people should be looking at, or was it making them more approachable, or that helping them understand that sometimes it can be difficult, so they didn't have to feel bad about struggling with it? What are your thoughts, or what have you heard?
I think it's just making it front and center to them. Mm-hmm. It's you know, they almost like they just didn't know that there were certain options there. And of course, you know, they're not taking the time to explore at all. They want to just look at the data and then go and do what else they have to do. So by putting that front and center in front of them, then they're like, oh, wow, I didn't know I could do this. This will help me a lot. Mm-hmm. And I try to make sure that everything that I show them is something that they're going to be able to use, something that I think is going to be able to help them. Like when I showed them the new feature of collections last month, you know, brand new feature. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, they're going to love this, because it's like collections are like favorites on steroids, because it allows you to actually categorize your favorites. And sure enough, afterwards, I had so many people come up to me and say, Stephanie, that tip was awesome. I am going to use that now. And sure enough, there's tons of people that are building their own collections on Tableau Server. So yeah, so it's just they just didn't know what they could do. They didn't know the capabilities. So it's just making them aware.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you for joining us today. I hope everybody got what they needed out of the meeting today. Dinko's presentation, I know, was spot on. I loved what he showed us. I wanted to make everybody aware of some future events that are coming up. We have several user group events this week. The Wisconsin Tableau Users Group, the Columbus Tableau Users Group, Higher Ed Tableau Users Group. I know a lot of you guys are higher ed, App State. You might want to tune into that one. The Charlotte Tableau User Group, I think, is on Friday, and they always have an excellent lineup, great speakers, great presentations. I will put the link to here. I'll put that in the chat. And also, if you're not aware, Tableau Conference 21 is coming up very soon. And although it's virtual again, they have a great lineup. And of course, they're going to have the Iron Viz. They're going to have devs on stage, all their normal things. The keynotes from the administration is always interesting. And to find out what they're going to do in the future is always really interesting to listen to. So I'll put that link in the chat. And also our next meeting, I think is going to be, it says January 2021, but it's actually going to be 2022. And if you're not already a member of our LinkedIn group, I'll put that link in the chat as well, because those will be, that is the best way to keep track of what we're doing. And besides finding out when our next meeting is going to be, I always try to put up information from Tableau or just, different sources that I find interesting stories about data. Yeah, so those are all great links, and I will put them in right now into the chat so everybody has them. Just hold on for just 1 second. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. There they all are. Like I said at the beginning, Ginny wasn't able to be with us, but she is one of our co-leaders, so you can feel free to contact her or me. This is my email address. Okay. So if there are no further questions, that's the end, and we hope to see you all next time. And thank you for joining us. Bye. I'll leave these up in the chat for a few more minutes so everybody can catch them.
Thanks, Stephanie. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.